You're listening to Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall on CJAD 800.
That is James Mennie over at the Montreal Gazette. So, Jim, just a little heads up. If you're around at 5:30 this afternoon, I'm going to play an award-winning clip from Justin Trudeau. I don't know if you heard the question today. He was asked a direct question about why not. Why hasn't he yet called a public inquiry? His answer went on for almost 5 minutes.
Great.
And it would be an award winner if there was a category for, best spontaneous, non-scripted, non-answer to a direct question. But if you are around at 5:30, I think you might enjoy it.
Well, I'll absolutely be there with bells on, if only because, it's great. And we can play this. And this is not the first time. You have gone into to the wilds and come, they call you, Aaron, bring them back alive, Rand. And you come back with these Trudeau quotes that start, say, in Ottawa and end somewhere, I don't know, in the outskirts of New Delhi. And he said nothing, he's done nothing, and yet, you have to remember who he's up against. This is a crazy dynamic that we've got going here. And it would be funny, except that the country is kind of idling, if you will, in the automobile sense of the word. We don't really know whether we're moving forward or backwards. We know we're getting all this kind of bafflegab from Trudeau. But on the other hand, you've got a leader of the official opposition who seems to come from the Yosemite Sam school of politics, right? Everything that happens, there's smoke coming out of his ears, right? And we seem to have had an indication of what that's doing to the public perception. There's yet another Léger poll, but this time was done for TVA. And essentially, 55% of Canadians, not Liberals and or Conservatives, just 55% of Canadians think that Trudeau should not seek another term, which you think is like good news for Pierre Poilievre. However, the same survey found that nationally, and that's how the question was phrased, do you think Pierre Poilievre has what it takes to be prime minister? 45% of Canadians, coast to coast, said no, and that number shot up to 54% in Quebec. So once again, I mean, I joke about the different. You got a choice between Mr. Bad and Mr. Worse. This is where we are right now. And when you have and the other thing, this whole idea of perceived Chinese Communist Party interference in the election. This, because it's coming out in dribs and drabs, and because it's coming out with this leak over here and that leak over there. Personally, I've been a journalist all my adult life. So on the one hand, I'm saying, okay, that's cool. They got a leak and they ran with it. As a Canadian, I get a little bit worried, Aaron, when CSIS, the Canadian equivalent, I guess, of the CIA, is leaking to anybody. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, who exactly is doing the leaking? Is it going through a middleman? What's going on here? But in the end, we also have a situation where we're seeing this story, which still seems a bit nebulous in terms of what the interference consisted of and so on. Everyone's saying, I got public inquiry. Let's get this figured out. But of course, once that thing gets thrown into the charnel house of social media, now there is, perhaps predictably, a growing school of thought, although I wouldn't use school perhaps. There's a growing body of thought. The election was rigged, Aaron. It was stolen.
Please don't tell me this is happening here too.
That's
pretty depressing.
Well, but this is what gets me. This is and just as annoying and as irritating as this kind of because I know you've described him in the past. This whole sort of like school teacher kind of tone of voice that he uses. I'll see your school teacher. I will. You know what he reminds me of? Like a guidance counselor. Not even a teacher. It's like, are you sure this is really what you want to do, Canada? Have you thought about this? Have you thought about the? It's just annoying as hell. But on the other hand, he's up against a guy who, less than a day ago, goes on social media and says the radical NDP liberal agenda of flooding the streets with heroin, fentanyl, and crack has more than tripled overdose deaths in BC.
Okay.
I will end the chaos in our streets. Okay? That's the guy who wants to be prime minister.
I asked the question just thinking out loud the other day. I was talking to a buddy of mine. We were talking about this, and as you said, you go from Mr. Bad to Mr. Worse. And the question was, hypothetically, what if Stephen Harper was still leading the Conservatives? Do you think if this was happening now and he was leading the opposition, that it would be a completely different situation? In terms of voter intention.
You may not like the way I'm going to answer this question.
I'm
but
curious.
As far as I'm concerned, Stephen Harper still is leading the opposition. He is. This is the reason. I think the reason that conservatives, actual conservatives, small c conservatives in this country have become political orphans is because the slightly warmed over version of American Republican politics that became a hallmark of the Harper administration and became so intolerable that you had in 2015, you had Canadians, and I spoke to the day after the election, but I said, Trudeau did not win, Harper lost this. He just annoyed the hell out of people, and people just got fed up. And remember, Trudeau went from a third-place party. Remember, it was supposed to be the NDP under Tom Mulcair was going to be the next government. And he comes out of nowhere, and he just sees, he was smart enough, Trudeau, to seize upon that absolute, I won't say hatred is too strong a word. It's just that people were just annoyed. They were fed up with just this tone, this sanctimonious tone where everything was a psychodrama, whether you're for us or against us. And, I remember when Jack Layton, who was head of the NDP at the time, was suggesting that, perhaps it's time to try and end the fighting over there. He was immediately painted, are you supporting the terrorists? And again, calling him Taliban Jack. That's where the level of political discourse went under Stephen Harper. It's still there today.
Okay, I wonder how many people think, you don't realize what you have until it's gone. Some people, I'm sure, in the conservative camp think that, but you're probably right. I wonder, too, and we're going to move off this. If I said the name Peter MacKay, would that make a difference?
Certainly not to a lot of conservatives, because don't forget, a lot of people say Peter MacKay is the reason. He sold out the PCs. He signed off on this Frankenstein's monster that was the Reform Party and the Canadian Alliance Coalition. They slapped some new branding on it, and they're calling themselves conservatives. But listen, to go back where we began, we're in this dead end where we don't really have anybody who seems to be in charge. We have two different kinds of rhetoric in this country, but no leadership.
All right, let me move on to the next story here. You wrote the Quebec Liberals have a great idea on property taxes. I haven't heard it. What is it?
Well, this is the thing. Today, they turned around and they asked the local government, listen, can you give municipalities the authority to allow seniors who are homeowners, on like low-income seniors, can they defer the payment on their property taxes or a portion of the payment on their property taxes until the property is either transferred in ownership or until it's sold? And I'm thinking, well, I've never heard this before, but it sounds like a pretty good idea. And I'm thinking, wouldn't this have been a good idea for the Liberals to actually sort of cite during the election campaign back in October? Because let's face it, the core of Legault's support comes from voters over 60. Many of whom, I guess, are homeowners. Many of them are homeowners. I thought, what an appealing thing. Is this new? And apparently, no. 8 out of the 10 provinces in Canada already have this policy, and it's been around for more than a decade. So if next time you're asking yourself, how come the Liberals are spinning their wheels at 14%, 4 points behind the PQ and like 75 light years behind the CAC, perhaps their sense of timing could be improved a bit, buddy. Perhaps if you have a good idea, give it, hand it out during the election campaign, because right now, all Legault has to do is wait a few months, adopt the policy, and he'll take credit for it.
It's messaging, right? I mean, if you have the messaging, why don't you get it out? I mean, how are people supposed to find it? I don't understand this kind of stuff, honestly. Did someone look at this within the party and go, hey, this is a great idea. Let's keep it under wraps for a little longer?
Well,
I mean, it doesn't make sense.
When you think about one of the centerpiece, you remember one of the centerpiece issues for the Liberal campaign in the last election was their hydrogen scheme.
Yeah.
That
was quite the
starter.
starter.
We're going to create warp drive with hydrogen. The problem is we needed, 35, bazooka watts of electricity. So Quebecers would have to ration their electricity so we'd be more green with hydrogen energy. The whole thing was a pig's breakfast. And now we're seeing this idea come bobbing to the surface. Listen, I don't care at this point whether it's the CAC or the Liberals who take credit for it. I hope they do it because, as far as I'm concerned, it is one of the reasons we have governments is to do stuff like this, compassionate stuff,
Agreed.
common sense stuff, and plus the population is growing, so it's pragmatic stuff. But man, oh man, you really have to wonder sometimes whether there's anybody in the control booth.
James Mennie over at the Montreal Gazette. Jim, thank you. You have a good weekend.
You too, buddy.